Smith County Bruce Corporate Services Committee Finance and Property Division to order, and welcome all those that are visiting us via the internet today. This time I'd ask any of the committee to declare pecuniary interest, either now if it arises down the agenda. Hearing none, action items 2A, Betty Ann.
Thank you, Mr. Warden.
We thought maybe you were afraid to come out.
No, not at all. Just getting more ammunition. So the first item is the Bruce County Historical Society, and you heard from Ross Lamont and some members last week, and they had requested funding of $25,000 over a 2-year period. And there seemed to be support from committee, and it was referred to the Corporate Services Committee. So today we have provided you with the background report, and there's a 2-part recommendation. The one is the letter of support for the Trillium Grant application that they will be submitting by the end of this month, and then the $25,000 commitment, which currently has been included in the 2016 budget that's will be presented later today, and then 2017, the balance of the payment.
Thank you, Betty Ann. There's a staff recommendation. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Mike, seconded by Milt. Are there any further discussions? Very well worthwhile project, I feel. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you.
The second item, of course, is related to the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative, and our pleasure that our warden is able to attend that upcoming summit in Paris. And this is a recommendation that a letter to the Secretariat be forwarded that Warden Tulin would be able to share with the group.
There's a staff recommendation. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Milt, seconded by Robert. Are there any discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor, opposed if any, that is carried. Thank you. Budget. Is anybody going to move and second that? No takers.
Just to get it on the floor.
Okay. Let me speak to it first.
I'm more than happy to move, but I'll be voting against it.
So just have a couple of items that I'd like to, I'm going to ask Darlene to pass out, if she would for me, please. These items are not new, but sometimes I think it's helpful to, and this as well, I can go out after, those are the same. I think it's helpful to sometimes have a paper copy so that I can walk you through just exactly what it is that we have done and what we provided for you since we last met and had a discussion related to the budget on October 22nd. So the document that, the written document that was provided to you just reflects the challenge that you provided to staff. And this budget that we are presenting to you today maintains the current services, and I've highlighted some of the areas where we have seen the increases and where the impacts are. And also identified that in this third version, we have reduced additional $249,000, and we've outlined where those reductions have taken place. And we've also outlined what the remaining positions are, and that's in the written document that was circulated. For the item that was just circulated to you now, and I'm going to bring it up on screen as well for those of you who want to view it that way. Okay. Keeps reverting back to me. There we go. Okay. So this is also was the item that was circulated as well, but I know it is small when you're looking at it there, so it may be easier to find on your screen. But it is the overall corporate document. So what it does, and it is a bit small because we wanted to show you where we started on October 8th and how we got to where we are today at the 3.66% increase. So just walking you through that document, the first column, of course, your departments, the 2015, that was the approved levy in 2015, $40,422,000. In 2016, in the October 8th submission, the staff recommendation was an increase of $3.5 million. Then on October 22nd, when we went back and made a number of adjustments, the change was an increase of 1.7, which was still a 4.28% increase. And then today's submission, with the reduction of the $249 additional $1,000 from the October 22nd submission, it's $1,479,968. Now, I just want to draw your attention to a couple of items, and if you take a look at the spreadsheet just below it, and it refers to total salaries. And as you know, many of our salaries are driven by decisions made through collective agreements and also our non-union salary. So you can see there, although transportation is a bit of an anomaly because of the way we record our transportation as part of our projects, but regardless, it's salaries and wages are driving 1.3 million of that expenditure. So you can note the correlation between the increase in salary. So if we look at, for example, any of the departments in the top part of the spreadsheet, I can use social services and housing, and I apologize that it just comes up on that written spreadsheet as housing. But social services and housing, they have a $349,000 increase in their levy requirement, and $203,000 of that is specifically related to staff wages and benefits. And you can see the correlation between the other departments as well. In the second spreadsheet, and we'll come back to that one when we're finished. In the second one, this is where it identifies your pressure category. So the expenditures by program, and keep in mind that the top half of that, the one that's just got a 2 circled on this side, keep in mind the top part of that is expenditures by program. So the full expenditure in the program, then it's expenditures by type. So all of the programs, and that's where you see your salaries, wages, and benefits halfway down, that you've got $42 million in salaries and wages and staff-related costs, the contract services. Capital, in particular, $15 million in capital. Last year it was 15.7, this year it's 15.2. One of the driving factors of that decrease, though, is we purchased defibrillators in 2015, almost 400,000, which is not repeated in 2016. So that outlines by type at $1.7 million. And then you can see the overall offsetting revenue by type as well for the various programs of $55 million. So overall, the levy requirement, the 3.6, our expenditures are increasing from 95 million to 97 million, or 1.88%, and our revenues are only increasing 0.58, so driving that up to 3.66. And if you want to look at where the expenditures are according to our pressure categories, you can see under maintained services, the net requirement is 11.6 million, 35,000 in the provincial legislated, and some reductions in our council priorities. Review that one. And so it just shows you what the driving forces are in the pressure categories. The third page is just a snapshot of the entire organization, but does not include the pressure categories. And that brings you at the bottom right-hand corner, the net requirement, the 3.66%, and then the change in the full-time equivalents as well. I wanted to provide a little bit of background as far as the levy and what that actually means when we translate that into a tax rate, because there's certainly been some news on the lately that we've been listening to others as they've been passing their budgets, and some of you know that it's always good to compare apples to apples, because when we compare apples to oranges, it never gives a true picture. So I always recommend that when we are indicating what our tax increase is that we are actually looking at what the levy increase is. And in our case, the levy increase is $1.479 million. Just on the news, of course, we've heard that Grey County has adopted their budget yesterday, and their increase, they were saying, was 1.8%. That 1.8%, I guess I should identify that includes their 1% estimated growth in assessment. So their actual increase to their levy, and this is very coincidental, ours is $1,479,000, and theirs is $1,477,000.
Well,
So, but because they have a larger
population.
a larger levy to begin with, our 1.479 million equates to a 3.66%, theirs equates to a 2.87%. So 1% on, if we assume 1% assessment growth, and right now our preliminary data is reflecting a growth of 0.93%, and get the right number. So it's approximately 1% on our levy is 404,000. So yes, so if we were comparing the 1.8, or we were taking that into consideration, the 1%, that would reduce our impact to about 2.7. If you took that new revenue in. But that's not how we present our levy. We present it based on what are we actually going to spend, what is the net cost, and then the assessment itself establishes our tax rate. So I did, thank you, Darlene, for distributing those documents. So the other document that I provided for you is just our levy and tax rate summary for the last number of years. And I've also had the, as I said, information from MPAC that is identifying our overall taxable growth at 0.95%, residential at 1.02. Now, we also know that the phased-in assessment is what impacts our tax rate. So if we had no phased in and we just had the 1%, our 3.66 would translate into a change in the residential tax rate at about 2.6. So to give you an example, last year, the levy was increased by 3.8, but the overall residential assessment grew by almost 5%. So that's why the tax rate, the change in the residential tax rate went down by 1.02. But in all fairness, most taxpayers saw their assessment go up because of the phased-in assessment. So when people are comparing tax rates and levies and taking in 1%, it's all in how you deliver it. So I thought it was important that, because we hear it on the news all the time, and I think I try to suggest to everyone that, the question to ask is, what is your levy increasing? But it appears that we found even a different way to present that, taking off the 500,000, because that's really growth. It's just in the establishing of the tax rate. But I wanted to be able to compare apples to apples, and to also point out the actual dollar increase and how it was so almost identical to what Grey County was intending to raise for tax purposes.
Any questions? Mike?
Here we go again. And I really, each year, and I suspect you'll do it again, each year we get a comparative of all the ratios, tax ratios from different, you do that each year, and after they come in, and I really look, and your description there, and comparators, I really enjoy that, and I'm sure you're going to do it again. Just to say, I really look forward to that, because it puts all of this in perspective with what you just explained, Vidya.
That report is in draft, and I usually present it in January.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we're just collecting a little bit more information from the other upper tiers, and,
Yep.
yeah. It's in draft.
Okay. Did you have anything else?
I didn't have anything else to add. I'm not sure if our CAO wanted to add anything else. There is a staff recommendation, and we would look to committee for questions or further clarification.
Kelly, did you want to add anything?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would offer a couple of things, beginning with the acknowledgement of, given whenever you change something, it's very difficult to keep it all straight. And with the implementation of the program budgeting, that has certainly been in play for many of us. The huge positive of the new format is it does highlight for all of you the major pressure categories and what in fact is driving the increases along with the full-time equivalents, and it really is quite telling. Secondarily to that, the amount of commitment that the directors have placed to get us where we are has been, it's been a lot of work. It's been a very rewarding work, and going forward, I think everybody would say the same thing, that they have a much greater understanding of how their operations are all impacting the entire organization as a result of the redesign. And finally, just moving over, if I may, just very quickly, under the full-time equivalent part on the second sheet that had been submitted, and drilling down to the planning department, it's worth just highlighting that the 4 positions that are listed there, 2 of them are the BEC positions with the Business Enterprise Center, and then the other 2, one is the planning technician for the Lakeshore Hub Office, and the 4th is the sector development position. So 2 of them are funded through the provincial party.
Any questions or comments? I think everybody's happy. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the 2016 consolidated budget? Moved by Milt, seconded by Ann. Are there any further discussions? I just want to thank Betty Ann and all of your team and all of the directors for getting us to 3.66%. I think that's very fair. I think, to go with 0 and 1% increases isn't the way to run a multi-million-dollar corporation. And we've been entrusted by the citizens of Bruce County to do the right thing, and sometimes we have to make tough decisions. But at the end of the day, I think this is a very fair budget for all those. And then you can see by the tax rate, this will actually be helping our lower income people. So I think this is a very fair and good budget, and I want to thank all those involved with getting us where we are today. Milt?
Just to do the things, to accomplish the things we tried to accomplish this year, and as you said, to maintain the services that we have. I don't know where else we would go to try and reduce the budget anymore. So I think it is, once, as Betty Ann has explained, once we work in our growth, I think it's, we can live with that.
Thank you, Milt. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you.
Good job, Jerry.
Okay, Betty Ann?
There's an information item. It was related to the review of the procedure bylaw, and I just wanted not to lose sight of that. That was a presentation to the last council session, and it was deferred back to corporate services in order to give it a meaningful and
Social housing.
thorough review.
Highways.
We're requesting that we would bring that recommendation back to committee at the January 7th meeting.
So that's for information.
It's for information.
Another.
Any comments? Okay, moving on. Oh, that's it.
Just closed, the closed
Yes.
meeting section.
Just let me go back to the start here. Could I have a mover and seconder to go into closed that, or to discuss budget training pursuant to section 239, 3.1 for the purpose of educating or training the members?